recording that whole time.
Cool. Is it going again?
Yeah, it's going now.
Sweet, all right. For the people watching the video, my name is Ryan Heron, and I am the former co-president of the UVic chapter of SOS. And today I'm going to do a little workshop on how to make your review sessions both fun and effective in teaching. So one thing that we have an issue with on review sessions is we're trying to compact like a whole semester's worth of curriculum into 3 hours. So how do we make students not feel like this goose? Literally what we're doing is we're taking, I think, 36 hours of lecture and compacting it into 3 hours of review. If you want to do the math on that, that's, I think it was every minute of your review session has to represent 12 minutes of your lecture, or every 4 minutes of your review session has to represent an entire lecture. And we thought our profs already went through slides too fast, so we're trying to maximize it. I think 12 times is fast, go through all the same content. So yeah, somehow we have to avoid the issue of students feeling like information is just being jammed down their throat. And if you're unfamiliar, foie gras, I think it's called, is a food product made from fatted goose. And I won't go into the details, but there's a funnel involved and the gooses don't like it, but that's how they get them fat. So how do we fix this? How do we avoid this pitfall? First of all, whenever you make a review session or any presentation, think of yourself as your audience. So think of yourself as the student, and what would you want in a review session? Well, is it enough just to present information? I don't think so, because the students already have textbooks, they have all their slides from the semester, and they already have all the information, so it's not enough just to throw the info at them. We need to do it in a way that is clear overview of the material. It needs to incorporate practice questions so that you're actually learning a lot more kind of on the spot in the review session, and you're going to walk away with so much more if you've already kind of practiced and used and manipulated that knowledge. And then the key thing though is to make your session engaging. 3 hours is a long time. Heck, a 50-minute lecture is a long time. 3 hours is crazy. So we need to somehow engage our audience, keep them focused the whole time through literally the entire curriculum's worth of material. That's a pretty challenging task. And up till now, most of the tutors last year have been really good at presenting information very clearly, very concisely. They did a great job with that. I think today we're going to try and spice things up a little bit by showing you how you can make your sessions a bit more engaging, have a bit more punch, how to keep people focused throughout the whole 3 hours. And I think that's what separates the good tutors from the great tutors. So we're going to go over those first 2 points really quickly. I know we've devoted an entire meeting on this last semester. There's a PowerPoint we can send you guys if you want on how to format your session, build your session, make PowerPoints and stuff. But in short, there's a few points. Have clear, concise, readable text. Use proper spelling and formatting. But of course, you don't need to do full sentences. This is just a PowerPoint after all. It's not a book we're writing. Animate appropriately. Notice how my points are coming in one by one. I didn't just give you all of them at first because that would be too overwhelming. And also, they're not spinning or doing anything crazy. You can do that sometimes, but if you do every single animation of something flying in or spinning or whatever, it's just overwhelming. So try to avoid that. Useful images. You guys have been great with that so far. You can find images off Google or wherever you can, but make sure they're relevant and very useful to whatever's on the slide. Helpful examples and practice questions. It's a lot better to learn knowledge and then use it immediately instead of learn knowledge, learn more knowledge, learn 3 hours worth of knowledge, and then use it tomorrow or the next day, or maybe not even until you're sitting with the exam in front of you. So throwing in a practice question, throwing in some examples, asking the audience for some answers is a great way to kind of say, all right, let's stop giving you information, let's make you use what we've already shown you, and make you maximize what you're getting from this 3 hour session. All right, next up, list of contents. It's such an easy thing, and every presentation I've seen for the last couple of months is missing a content slide. It's so easy to kind of remind your audience of, hey, we're halfway through our presentation today, or look, we only have 1 point left or something. You'll see a list of contents come up 2 or 3 times in this presentation. It's a great way to just kind of give that roadmap. If I'm driving somewhere, I want to know, hey, I've only got 100 kilometers left, and that'll give me a bit more motivation to go that extra 100 kilometers. Whereas if you're going, I don't know how are we there yet? If you do that on the whole trip, you're going to just, get bored out of your mind and it's going to feel like it's taken forever. But this way, adding a list of contents makes you feel like you're progressing through your session a lot faster than you are. And summaries, building off of that, doing a quick summary at the end of each chapter. Hey, here's the key formulas I just showed you, or here is the top 5 things you need to know from chapter 1. Something like that is so easy, and also a quick little refresher of, hey, this is what we just covered. Did you get all of it? And if not, what can we do to make you understand that? All right, and know your slides. Yeah, sounds easy, but make sure you're really kind of knowledgeable. You're going to build your own slideshow, so I hope you know exactly what every click's going to do, what every picture is for, what every example is. You don't have to memorize all the text and everything. I'm reading it off the screen right now, but it really helps to know kind of what's coming up next. Because the worst thing, I think I had one prof who he didn't even know what one of the graphs was that showed up on his slideshow the other day, and it's like, really, man? You should have made that. How come you don't know what those slides are? So that's professionalism out the window. So we want to really hit all of these points, and boom, you already have a very professional, very useful presentation. So enough of that. Watch for all these things in my presentation. We're going to get into the engaging part, the fun parts, and this will be a really good, entertaining presentation from this point on, I think. My number 1 goal is always to make the content understandable, but I always add that second goal in there. I want to make it entertaining, because I hate standing in front of an audience watching like 2 people on their phones, 2 people heads on their desk, the rest of them just kind of like looking at you but not really all mentally there. It just drives me crazy, so I try to like demand your attention, and it makes me a better presenter when my audience is engaged, and it of course makes our students walk away with a lot more knowledge. So with that in mind, how come I'm qualified to stand up here and tell you, hey, these are the best ways to make your sessions fun, blah, blah, blah. Look at my student feedback from last year. I made learning have a fun approach. I gave analogies that helped with learning the concepts. I really engaged the students, they didn't get bored. I made the subject more interesting. I teach physics review sessions. That is one of the most boring subjects at the university. And yet, here, look at these comments. Students are not sitting there thinking, man, I hate physics. They're thinking, this guy teaches well, makes his questions amusing, and is enthusiastic. He makes it fun, but also helps me learn. There's a good balance there that we're going to talk about today. Awesome explanations and examples. I'll never forget those examples, which means I can apply them to different questions. Hey, that's pretty cool. If you can achieve that, people are going to remember that example for the rest of their life, or at least until the exam is over. Entertaining. This one's my favorite. Makes you want to learn. I mean, wow, that is kind of the pinnacle of what a teacher should be, and I hope we can, get you all to that level in your review sessions this semester. So, how do I do it? I just told you what I do, but how exactly do I achieve those comments, and how can you get them? So, here is a very important graph, and that's kind of a disgusting slide there. I already blew it on my formatting. Don't use yellow text. My graph was pretty useless. Let's try that again. Boom. Here's a very important graph. Much better slide, better formatting. It's way more useful already. So this one's called the attention curve. And nobody really knows about this, but I think it's one of the most interesting graphs out there. This is your attention span over a 40-minute lecture. This has been proven in psychology repeatedly, and they always get the same thing. Your attention goes up at the very beginning, and then it drops and stays down until the very end when you're like, hey, the clock's almost at the end, I'm going to pay a bit more attention, and then I'm going to leave the lecture. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that everything you learn in the middle, you don't actually learn because you're not really engaged, you're not paying attention. It's the same phenomenon with if I presented you with a list of things and I asked you tomorrow, name as many things off the list as you could. Most of you would remember the first couple things and the last couple things, but nothing in the middle. So somehow we have to save that in the middle there. So on my y-axis I have the percentage of the class paying full attention. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. So we want to kind of establish what's the lower percentage of the class that we want to try and stay above, because our curve there went pretty low. We want to keep that higher. So how do we do that? Let's define that kind of bottom line that we want to stay above. So here's a class, all the kids are engaged, all their hands are up. It's obviously fake because you never see a class like that. So 100% attention is nearly impossible. In fact, our graph never even went up to that full 100%. You're just not going to get that, especially with larger audiences, especially with kids, and especially with students who are stressed out, hungover potentially, I don't know, low on sleep, it's exam time, you don't know what they are, but they're not paying attention to you. So how do we fix that? All right, actually let's extend this to a larger audience here. So here's a typical university lecture. We know it's a typical one because we have about 98% of the students have MacBooks. So let's just go through the front row. Who's paying attention here? I think the lecturer is kind of where I'm standing, off to the right of the screen. So she's paying attention. He's not. Come on in, Jess. She's definitely not. She's asleep. These two are chatting. He's looking at me, so I'll count them as something, or at least he's looking at the cameraman. This guy looks bored out of his mind. We have 25%, and that sucks. If you extended that to the entire audience, you know, what? 3/4 of the class might as well not even be there. So that's pretty bad. All right, let's do better. What if 50% were paying attention? So let's say the green half of the class was all engaged with my lecture, and the red half of the class couldn't care less. I'd feel pretty bad standing here trying to teach that class saying, the ones on the left, they're not even paying attention to me. They could be looking at anything on their computers. They could have not even shown up today. It's a complete waste of their time. I don't like this ratio. It's a little bit too drastic for me, so that's not great. Let's try something better. 75%. What does that look like? Hey, that looks pretty good. Nearly all the class is paying attention to me. The difficulty with this is it's very hard to maintain. As we saw on that graph, 75%, you're going to go below that very quickly in your lecture. It's very hard to keep 3 out of every 4 people engaged for your entire 3 hours. So let's choose something between 50% and 75%. So I'm just going to arbitrarily choose a 66% lower limit. You know, 2/3 of the class looks kind of like this. All these people in green paying attention, these people in red, they zoned out for a little bit. But we can save them because this is just our lower limit. All right, recap here, 100%, way too hard. You can't keep everyone engaged. Some of you right now are probably zoned out. 75%, still pretty hard. 50% and below is way too low. We didn't like teaching only half the class or less. So we're going to make 66% this lower limit. And what does this mean? It means that when 1/3 of the class has lost the attention, we're going to do something to save them. Yeah, they're calling SOS, right? We need to save their attention, bring it back up to 100%, and we need to, you know, figure out A, how to do that, and B, when do we do that? So, when does 66% occur? Well, this great graph comes back. I drew a line here at 66%, and that conveniently occurs, boom, right at 10 minutes. So this is the secret of teaching that I actually wish a lot more profs knew, especially those 1.5 or 2-hour lectures. It's called the 10-minute approach. And the way this works is every 10 minutes, when we hit our 66% critical point, we're going to do an intervention to rescue attention back up to 100%. That's going to naturally fall back down again. Boom, 20-minute mark, we do an intervention, save the class again. So this is a really cool way. Every 10 minutes, you know, every maybe subtopic or something, you throw something at them that just kind of surprises them. Boom, the whole class is back. They're paying attention again. They're learning way more. And all of a sudden, all of this stuff that just would not sink in is now going to start making sense. They're going to remember it. They're going to learn a lot more this way. So that's our 10-minute approach. And yeah, so that's when we do it, every 10 minutes. But how? How do we save them? What do we use? So here are my top 13, I think, ways to make your exam aids fun. And these you can actually, this entire presentation applies not only to your SOS review sessions, but also to every presentation you're ever going to give. Use it for your class projects. Maybe some of you are going to become profs yourself, or give a business presentation. Some of these won't apply to a business, but any presentation you do, you can throw some of these fun things in, and your audience is going to like it that much more. So let's get started with audience interaction. So this is the lowest level of connecting with your audience, and it's also the least intimidating though. So it's really great to throw at the beginning of review sessions. I always throw one of these at the very start of my review session, and it kind of goes like this. I say, hey guys, how many, or if I was to give you the exam right now, I'm going to hand out the final exam to you guys right now, today. How many of you would fail? Hands up. And I'd get a proportion of the class putting their hands up. And I'd say how many of you would get between 50 and 70%? You know, a few people would throw their hands up. Between 70 and 90%, you know, you get a few hands in there. And I'd say how many people would get an A+? And you might get one smartass in the audience. And I'll just fire all my questions at him for the rest of the session. No. The idea with that is two things. We break the ice, we get, you know, a bit connection going with the audience, and also we kind of identify, hey, you know, where's our audience at in terms of their confidence level? Are they all at the point where they're going to fail their exam, or are they all kind of up at that 70, 80% already and just going for it, wanting that A+? So it's a great way to feel out your audience, break the ice, and throw some great audience interaction in there. I'll do one right now. How many people now understand the 10-minute approach? Let's do thumbs up for yes, I understand it completely. Thumbs down for no, I do not understand the 10-minute approach. Come on, guys. Let's see the thumbs. And I have 100% of the people giving me the thumbs up. I know I just did a great job presenting that, and we can move on. Also, you guys, a lot of smiles when you're doing the thumbs. Boom, that's just bonus points for me right there. Yeah, sweet. So much was gained just from that 2 seconds. I now know you all are comfortable with the content, and you're also more engaged with me. All right. Audience participation. Give the audience 30 seconds or so to try and solve a question on their own. And then you're going to ask for answers from the audience. At first I didn't do too many of these because standing there with the question on the screen and I'm just standing there for like a minute or so just waiting, it's like, man, I'm just wasting the review session. We only have 180 minutes or whatever. You know, I'm just blowing a whole minute waiting for you guys to solve the problem. I might as well just show it myself since I'm going to do that anyways. No, the minute's a very important thing. When people start solving the problems themselves, it's immediate feedback whether they know it or not. And it's using that material that we just showed you, and you're going to remember it a lot better if you use it. So definitely throw some audience participation in like this. And I'll throw a question at you right now. If your review session is 3 hours long, how many of these 10-minute attention cycles are there? Give you a few seconds just to do that math. And would anyone like to venture an answer?
Like 15?
15? 17. 17?
16.
16? I think you're all kind of in the right ballpark. What's 3 hours? That's 180 minutes, 10-minute chunks. So yeah, 18, but we don't need one at the end, so I guess 17 would be appropriate.
And there's breaks.
And yes, we do intermissions. Subtract 2 because we're doing 2 5-minute intermissions
And
somewhere.
we don't need the one that at the beginning.
You're right, we don't need one at the beginning either. So, all right, that's great. See, we already got way much more out of this question than me just saying, hey, it's 18, next slide. Boom. We now got a discussion going, everyone's more engaged. Look at that, audience participation in action. All right, next one is a little bit different, audience integration. This one's the most advanced level of interacting with your audience, and some of the students are actually going to become part of your lesson or example. You can do this by getting volunteers to help with an example or a demonstration, or you could just ask for a student's name and integrate that into your question. So you could have a blank question and then say, you know, Sam's teaching a review session. How many 10-minute intervals are there? You know, boom, we've just made it a lot more personal for Sam and the whole audience by integrating one of you into my question. It's that easy. Or I've done demonstrations at the front of the class. There are some torque things I did for physics, and that one's tough because people don't like to come up to the front of the class, but at the same time it's a great way to kind of get people into your, you know, what you have to show them, your examples or your theories or whatever you're trying to show. I think, is there a warning here? Yes, it is. This is the most intimidating. Like I said, people don't like to do it. They don't like having, you know, putting themselves on the spot or coming up to the front of the room. So don't do that at the start of your session. It's just not going to end well. I saw a comic where it's like, you know, would anyone like to tell me an answer or be part of this demonstration? And then the next scene of the comic, the prof has turned into a skeleton, waiting so long. So don't do that at the start. Once you break the ice, do some of those other audience participation integration stuff. Then you can do something a bit more advanced like this. All right. Here is an example that I use straight out of physics for audience integration. You'll see why I don't want to do this right away in my session, but it is useful. So there's Newton's law of gravity. Between every particle in the universe, there's an attractive force proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to their distances squared. Blah, that is boring. Gravity sucks. Let's make it more fun. I told the audience, I went up the aisle when I taught this, and I picked out a girl, and I said, hey, what's your name? And she said, Bianca. And I said, Bianca, did you know there is an attractive force between us right now? It's proportional to the product of our masses and inversely proportional to the distance between us squared.
I already knew that, Ryan.
Yeah, right? And when I get closer, the radius decreases and the force of attraction increases. But as I walk backwards, the radius increases and all of a sudden you're breaking my heart, right? So look at this. Everyone's learning so much. You're always going to remember the gravitational formula now. And we got laughter going. Our level of attention is back up to 100% of the class, and I can just feel that. I can see it. Everyone's so engaged right now. And that would have been a subject that would have put a lot of people to sleep. And if we even wanted to take this a step further, we could have done a question calculating what the actual force was between us in newtons with our masses and whatnot. So I won't do that right now. Next step is emotions, and I think we'll actually pause our chapter right here for a second. So Sean, you can click